Hello? I can't hear anybody. Okay.
Turn your volume up.
And now, yeah, you were muted for some reason.
We're good. You good? Okay. We just did budget. You have any questions for budget, Maria?
Oh, which part?
1 through 5 on budget and finance. We just finished number 5. Do you have any questions on any of those topics?
Well, the only question is when those documents get posted, because I go to the Oley Valley School District website and the documents, I have not seen them until about yesterday for review. So I did not have a chance to review them yet. So at the moment, I will not have any questions. It was not enough time.
They were posted on Friday.
When do you post them?
They were posted on Friday.
Okay, because I've been checking the website and they have not been refreshed or uploaded till yesterday.
They were posted on Friday. Agenda was posted late last night, but they were documents were posted on Friday. You have to click on the folder that is under the date. The website will only post will only show about the first 15 documents. In order to open the folder, you must click on the folder that's under that I showed you today in the email. That's standard on the school blocks website.
Okay. Yes, unfortunately, I was not able to review all of them, so I would not have questions for that.
Then we'll move on with personnel.
Personnel.
Personnel has 7 items actually, and it sounds like a lot to be added.
Yes.
If you can give us a quick notes version of those, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Number 1 is resignation of Mary Ellen Morgante, effective July 8th, 2022. We have posted for that position, and Ming has some outstanding applicants, and we're hoping to interview next week. And then I'll keep you updated on that because we're hoping to get somebody in place as soon as possible as we are continuing with audit prep. Number 2 is to ratify the transfer of Jared Ott from the position of day shift custodian to a position of day shift maintenance assigned to the elementary school July 1, 2022. He is doing an outstanding job and has been in the maintenance area, and it's just a title change for him. Number 3 is the appointment of Kayla Edmondson, agricultural teacher assigned to the high school beginning August 17th, and her credentials, that should be bachelor step 2, sorry. No, sorry, bachelor is step 3. One, instructional 1, PA agricultural certification, K-12, Penn State University. Number 4 is her mentors, Tim Zever and Jeremy Deischer. They will split that compensation per the CBA. Number 5 is the appointment of Shelley Leonard as a science teacher assigned to the middle school effective August 17th. Bachelor step 24 or bachelor's 24 step 9 from Westchester University is her teaching degree. Her bachelor's in the arts, Temple University, where she got her degree in environmental science. She's worked in industry as well. We're very excited to have that business experience coming to us in the middle school. Instructional 2, PA certification in earth space science as well as general science. Her mentors will be Heather Jogeski. Compensation per the CBA. Motion number 7 is to ratify a teacher for ESY for the summer 2022, and that's Angela Brurex in special education. And as I mentioned earlier, we have another resignation for a math physics teacher here at the high school, which I will add for Wednesday.
Committee members, any questions?
For motion number 7, so what would be her responsibilities?
She teaches extended school year for special education students.
Which grades?
I think she is, I would have to check, but I'm not sure what level that we have her assigned to. I'd have to check with Mia for that. ESY.
She was approved for high school.
Right, but they're certified K through 12. They can teach any level.
Do we have any other teachers that interested in that position?
No.
This was a summer position. This isn't for the fall.
Yeah, summer position.
No, we don't
Ratify
have,
and Ratify.
we are short teachers. We had to outsource teachers to other areas. We still do not have enough teachers for extended school year.
Okay.
And that is a federal requirement that we provide extended school year services to our special education teachers or students.
Okay.
That's me, right?
Yeah. And this is what you had asked for, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
just a discussion. I was, as far as extending the time period for public review for the policies. Just open discussion. Maria?
Yeah, I know I've been talking about it for a while now. I've been asking. I also know that I heard from parents, even as much as they would like to be, you know, participate and have reviews and understanding what's going on in the district with policies, with curriculum. There's just not enough time in the day when they try to juggle the jobs, the kids, and try to be involved in the educational system that will affect their children's future. So therefore, I have been asking to extend it to 60-day review for materials that it's all goes right along with transparency and ability to constituents, especially parents, to be involved and have this opportunity to review materials, to be informed.
Isn't it, my understanding is that there are 2 readings of these things. The first one is 30 days, and the second one is 30 days. That comes up to 60 days.
I don't believe that's the case because we have the first reading on Wednesday and we have second reading the following Wednesday.
Is that accurate? I thought it was one meeting per month.
The first reading is, and then it sits for 30 days. And then your second reading is at the committee meeting, following committee meeting, which is the next month. And then it's approved at the next following board meeting.
So that's
Sometimes
So it's 30 days plus a week.
plus a week. Sometimes it could be 60 days. Sometimes it could be 40 days. It depends on how the board meetings and the committee meetings fall. Like the last one we had things that were appointed in April. They weren't approved till June. There are some that will sit depending on the days, like this will be the 20th. So these probably will not get approved until what you see tonight for first reading will not get approved until September because the second board meeting in August is the 18th. So that will not be 30 days. So then they will go until I think it's the 11th, maybe of September. So it all depends on the calendar and how that 30 days falls. Sometimes it's much more than 30 days. Sometimes it's, you know, it could be 40, 45. It all depends on what month you're looking at and how the board meetings fall.
Yeah, well, during the year, that was almost all the time 30 days. We only had a couple times when it was longer than 30.
We're also in a unique circumstance right now where we're going through large volumes of them at a period. Usually it's 1 or 2 policies
Exactly.
at most a quarter maybe.
Right.
So it's a unique circumstance right now where we're looking at large volumes of them, but
Well,
Okay.
then we need to adjust according to circumstance because it's like we have to allow a sufficient time for people to actually have a chance to read it, have a chance to participate. We can't just like, you know, yeah, let's rush things through and nobody has any understanding of what's going on. I don't think that's fair.
Policies are on the internet, right? You don't have to physically come in here.
They're
So
all posted.
you could pull it up
And if
at
you
11
read
o'clock at night.
5 a night,
Your kids go to bed if you
you
need
can
to.
do it certainly within 30.
Well, how about you talk to the parents who are swamped and the only thing they want to see is actually kind of get some rest. And policies and curriculum, they're all coming now like, you know, drinking out of the fire hose. It's just not, I don't think it's fair to ask people about this. Just to absorb that much information, that short period of time, understand what's going on, and actually have any input on it.
Let me ask a question. So procedurally, like, let's say if, you know, and I understand the volume of this, I really do. I know there's a time essence involved with this. You know, let's say there's a policy that we want to revisit once these are already brought through. what does that look like? As far as if we go back to, there's a policy that we passed that we'd like to make an amendment to.
You just bring it
Yeah, I
back
mean,
up.
You can bring it
Yeah,
back.
I understand.
Oh, you just-
There's a time frame here. I for certainly understand that, but I'm just kind of,
So if you want to bring it, like if you want to bring up policy 218 on student discipline,
Yeah.
then as a policy chair, you just use, I mean, like you did this one, you send me an email and said, I'd like to bring up for discussion again, policy 218. Can you add it to the
so,
agenda?
I mean, I think that's fair. Obviously, if we feel we missed something along the way, we can always bring that back up at a future board meeting, so.
And that way.
I've noticed there were a couple parents in the audience. Do they have any input?
I think that the board was elected to support the parents in reviewing the documentation and providing their expert opinion. But at the same time, I think maybe it could be opened up where the board or the administration could solicit feedback from the public directly and say, can we get a volunteer group or maybe form to
Anybody, I mean, anybody has a question on policy can come to these meetings too. So,
Right.
I mean,
I agree.
Or just email me and I'll answer them. If you
At
don't
any
understand something, most of our policies are all driven out of case law, or they're driven out of, the school interpretation of the school code for what's written on about a 7th or 8th grade reading level. That's what the policies are geared towards.
And it is an important point you make. It is a compliance issue. We have 30 days. 30 days has been there forever. It doesn't make it right, but even at that 30-day time frame forever. And I am concerned if we extend that more, we're looking at missing a potential to be potentially non-compliant.
That was my next question, is what the repercussions if we don't,
Exactly.
if we do extend it? We should always.
Well-
This one, we can always go back and revisit it, but I'd rather not hold up the process.
Dr. Heckman, I believe that policies, some of them are changes in law, some of them are projection to the law, and some of them specifically just coming from interpretation of the law, which is not the law itself, and depending which way the wind blows, things change. So that's not necessarily reflecting the values of this community or the school district, because I talk to different school districts as well as I talk to PSBA, and they do tailor their policies per school district, and they do work with the superintendent to make those policies. Like I said, some policies, they're strict law, so there is no interpretation to that, and you do have to be compliant with that. However, it's not the majority of those policies. A lot of them is actually, a school board does have a lot of input and decisions on what policies look like for a specific school district.
I'll let our solicitor comment on that in the future. I'm not a solicitor, but I know what our experiences have been.
And I don't tailor them. I get what PSBA has. If there's anything unique that I knew, like the alumni or that, who spoke at public meetings that the board had given me direction on, that's the changes I make. I just bring them as PSA brought them forth. The board gives me direction on what to change or not change.
Dr. Shank, I'm restating what PSBA people told me during the Zoom educational meeting on policies.
I am very aware of what they told you because they called me right after that meeting.
Good. So, and yes, because different school districts, they're not even reviewing all the policies that we are.
That's because they have a manual that is up to date and compliant. Ours is not.
And their manual, I checked the dates too, so they have not had some of them reviewed for a number of years.
Correct, but they have not had the threats of lawsuits that we have had in the last 18 months.
So back to
Dr. Fagan, you had a question.
I just, if we were to move to 60 days, which it doesn't sound like we got full support of the board, but what would that look like as far as the other policies being pushed back? How long that it's going to delay? How many more 100 policies do we have?
We have 4 sections to do. I have all 4 of them. I'm hoping to have 600s and 700s for you in August. 600s are they're not, there's nothing to them. They're all the financials and they're all right out of school code. You really can't change those. They are what they are. And the order, they have to be compliant. So there aren't many changes in those because if they're not compliant, you have audit findings. state and local, and as you know, our audits have been clean. So they won't take long. 700s, you'll have some discussion on. There are some in there that you may want to delay, like 707, which is your facility use one, and that always gets a little tricky with what you bill for and what you don't, and what rates you want to charge and things like that. So that one you may want to pull out and have that be on the longer one, and then the ones that are kind of like they are what they are, and run those through in 30 days and say these are 60 days and these are 30 days, and you can do it that way. And then you have the 8s and the 9s. The 800s are operationals. There are a lot of those that they are what they are, and a lot of more mandated trainings that we have to do: suicide prevention, child abuse training, all those kind of things.
So we're well in the next year.
We need to be done no later than November, because then we go into the new calendar year, we go into
Push it
handbook
back a
revisions,
little
we
bit.
go into more audits, we go in a lot of the other stuff. The 900s are what they call the community ones, which brings back your public comment ones. It's community outreach, it's some of those. There's not a lot, there's a lot of policies in those, but there's not a lot of meat in those. They're kind of like, they're the ones that really involve what the board wants to do from a community organization called community outreach, community communications. That's kind of the big ones, like the 0s, and the 900s are really on the board outreach ones. 800s are operationals. So you might have a few in the 900s that you want to pull out and maybe put those on longer, take a little more discussion on those.
Okay.
But the ones that you have in the 800s, like one of them came up in the audit. I forget which one was. Conflict of interest just came up in the audit. Which we're waiting on, which, we explained to the auditors what is happening with those, and they were okay with it. But we really need to have that done before the final audit, which is, beginning of November, so that it's on the books before the audit's, approved in December. But a lot of the others what they are. I mean, the state's going to give you what your trauma informed care one is. They're going to give you what your suicide prevention one is. They're going to give you, they are what they are. So you could pull out and say, this one, and this one, we want to use 60 days, and these are kind of like no-brainer ones, and you can do these for 30s and go through them that way.
Gotcha.
And that way, it's not holding up the entire series, it just holds some of them.
Good idea.
But Dr. Shank, in the past, you didn't allow us to pull the policies.
I don't make that decision.
I think it wasn't brought to discussion at the time of the committee meeting.
Okay, so at least we go into certain policies if we decide that necessary to pull them for a little bit longer discussion, then we that's what's on the table at the moment. Am I
I'm not alone
understanding?
in that, because I think I'm just learning my duties as policy chair. So
When you can't, like we had talked before, where you can't pull them is when they're on for approval and they're in one motion.
Yeah.
You cannot break them out
I
of the
gotcha.
motion. But in your committee, just
Yeah.
as you can break out whatever you want, like if they were on tonight, you could say,
Yeah.
I want to break this out and send that back for another meeting, but keep these moving forward.
I think one concern I have is just, if we have a group of let's say 50, 60 policies, being able to get through those to be able to know which ones to pull out. That's where sometimes there can be a little bit of a time frame, because if we get the policies maybe several days before, kind of hard to know which ones to pull out. So that's where.
And the other thing you could always do, and we used to do it, is when we had a massive in the last rewrite, was probably 2012 or 13, early on in my tenure here, as we actually had a policy meeting that was separate from this meeting, so that if somebody wasn't a policy person and didn't really want to dive into it, or didn't want to sit here for 2 hours and talk policy, they didn't have to come. They just came to the discussion afterwards, and then we didn't spend 3 hours at this meeting going through every policy, and that's where we had some new board members there then too. Because I think Mr. Beaver went off and some others, where I would go through them and explain the intent of the policies a little more in an educational standpoint versus a business standpoint.
Very careful insomnia.
Yeah, it is. But sometimes that way, and why it talks in generalities, and then how does it affect your employees or your students without tying up a 5-page agenda, and are making this meeting go till 9:30 or 10 o'clock because you have so many other business items. And doing a separate meeting that's still public, and we advertise it just solely like we do finance. We break that out. You could always break out a policy. It's one more night, but you could break out a policy meeting and just do all of those in one night as well. So you're not worried about all the other business. So you have to feel like you have to rush.
And the fact that we can revisit this and bring it up in minute, that, to hold up the process for maybe 1 or 2 that might be brought up at a later date. Makes sense to me. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Rico? Doctor?
We had been asked to do a quick presentation. I think he's here. Dr. Rohr.
That's not coming.
On the new Act 13 requirements that changed from 80, what was known as Act 82 and teacher evaluation and our walkthroughs. And also I asked him because there have been some questions, and thank you, Mrs. Jackson, for your comments on hiring. As far as when the principals are hiring teachers, what the process is that they use from his perspective, because you've heard it from mine, and what they do. And all the process and the steps and everything that we go through procedurally and what that looks like, and then the evaluation and our walkthrough tool that we use. So he's gonna he has some pieces that he's gonna hand out in short form, and he knows he only has about 10 minutes, so he's gonna talk fast. But he kind of leads the administrative team on training on Act 90, on the Act 13. And all evaluations, Dr. Markley, were done again this year, just so that you know that personnel.
Appreciate that.
And they were done well. And so that is just, and then we have trained the teachers on them. It is different. And state needs to get their act together, but that's a session for another day. When you use growth model to try and evaluate, it doesn't work, but they're never going to listen.
So my down and dirty review, Ms. Fogno, you'll get a copy then of the information I gave passed out to the board as well. Basically, what you see is Act 82 versus Act 13. So prior to this year, teachers were evaluated what they called Act 82. Now you change it to Act 13. What I did is just break down to you to show you pretty much what's the same and what's different in the evaluation, how the state considers what they consider we need to do in order to evaluate and assess teachers. So you can see as far as the same, the use of the observation and practice framework domains that Charlotte Danielson, that the schools have been doing for several years. We use the same model. We continue to use that model. Inclusion of student performance data. So how students do on our standardized assessments and so forth, part of the teacher assessment that's included. A 0 to 3 educated rating scale. So again, you're either a 3, a 2, or 1, and actually 0, you could say 4, but it's 3, 2, 1 educator rating scale. And then the levels of performance, satisfactory, distinguished, things like that, are levels that are still the same. What is new is the weighting of the observation and practice framework domains, refresh frameworks for all roles. In other words, the breakdown of how they define Charlotte Danielson and the different levels. Some of those things were changed a little bit. Flexible student performance measures. We used to do what was a student learning objective, SLOs. Now we do some SLMs, we call them now. And then streamlined building level score calculation, which in essence goes into, what that is looking at the data scores that the students receive from the state. And then we challenge as far as how much that quantifies into this teacher's assessment. So the quick thing is those are kind of changes. There were some, you could say big changes to some degree. It kind of, in some of the things as far as teachers were concerned, how much weight standardized tests play in the assessment has changed. It's got a little less. It's more on the actual observation and so forth. Has more weight in their total evaluation now. Observations, walkthroughs, things, that data. So that kind of has grown. And what's changed mostly is as far as the PSSA results, things like that, that assessment's not weighted as much. That's kind of a quick down and dirty as far as what the changes were. Believe me, I can get it on the back of the next page. You can see when I was talking about the 4 domains on the back, 4 domains of professional practice. The 4 areas they're assessed in are planning and preparation, classroom environment, instruction, and professional responsibilities. So when a teacher is assessed, they look at those areas and figure out as far as what that means, is what they're being, what we'll look at, obviously planning preparation, did they plan, what their plans look like. The second area is student environment, so if we're like that, that would be classroom management. Are they able to control the kids, discipline, things like that? Is it a safe environment, classroom environment, things like that. Third area is huge, that's instruction, obviously, what practices, instructional practices are they using in the classroom? And the 4th area would be professional responsibilities, and that'd be community, communication with parents, record keeping, those things. So those pretty much in a nutshell is a breakdown of what the 4 domains are. There's a breakdown from there, like you have 1A, 2A, like under each domain, there's specific things you look at in there for each one. like rapport with teacher, that would be something. Record keeping would be one below domain 4. So there's breakdown even more than that, but I'm just giving you the 4 major overall arching components of the Danielson model. Okay, now, and I'll come back, and if you have questions at the end, I'm going to go through this, and then feel free to shoot at me any questions. I'm trying to stay on my timeline. So with that, then, what I gave you is what I do for a walkthrough observation is something I'm looking at with the district and for other administrators as well to do. When I did this, I was familiar with breaking down the observation. That would be this form that I gave you there, the checklist. And when I do a walkthrough, it's kind of you pop into a teacher anytime. You can pop in at the beginning of the period, you pop in at the middle of the period, or the end of the period. When you do a walkthrough, the idea is to go in for 10 minutes or so, not the whole period, just kind of walk in, pop in anytime, do an assessment, try to do a couple walkthroughs a year for the teachers as well as their regular normal observation as well. But the good thing about walkthroughs and my philosophy has been, it's an opportunity really to, once you do a walkthrough, is to sit down with the teacher afterwards and just kind of talk with, what do we need to support you? Where do I see some things maybe that, hey, what about this? Make them think about that. Because what you can see, the way I broke it down here for look fors is it's aligned to the Danielson model. So begins the lesson properly. That would be aligned to an area in 2C. Teaching strategies would be aligned to instructional areas. You can see that. So there's 3 Bs, 3 Cs, specifically what I'm looking for there. So when I'm doing a walkthrough, I can sit there and say, okay, I see this, this is what I saw during that 10 minutes I was there. And I just note what I see. And I might circle over on the left side. If I came at the end of the period, did they summarize? Did they bring the kids together to, obviously review what they covered that day? That's kind of the front. And then in the back, when I meet with them, then I have discussion questions. So I do that walkthrough. I'm in there 10 minutes, note what I note. I then set up a meeting with the teacher. And then I kind of circle the areas that I think I want to discuss. I review with them what I saw, but then I also say, maybe I didn't see something like I wasn't there for the end of the period. So I asked them, how did you summarize that lesson? I might ask them, explain your classroom management plan. Explain how you interject technology into lessons. So I get a sense of what they're doing and what they're not doing. They explain that to, and it's pretty clear sometimes that, hey, they need a little more help in this area. And other times, no, I know they know what they're doing. But the opportunity to go in and do walkthroughs is keen. To do them with other administrators is always a positive thing as well. But pretty much as far as walkthroughs are concerned, that's the goal of a walkthrough, is to kind of go in, give the opportunity, it's a teacher learning opportunity. And it shouldn't be punitive. Obviously, you go in and teacher standing on their desk causing problems. Yeah, you're going to have to address that situation. But it should be a learning opportunity to really discuss how we can support you, make suggestions, things like that. And then obviously, when you do your full observation and review and all that stuff, you tie this all together as well. But there's still components of it. But I think keenly, anytime you do a walkthrough, it's an opportunity to sit with the teacher, see what they're doing, learn what they're doing, find out more, as well as give your input as far as what you think they should be doing or adding in a lesson. I'll be honest, sometimes summarizing. That's something teachers, and I know sure Mr. Mark is familiar with this, teachers have a tendency to get into that moment, they're teaching, they're all for it. And the best practice is truly to summarize. Take that 1 minute at the end of the period and bring it together. But oftentimes they're into that mode and they just go to the end of the period, and you want to have that quick 1 minute, 30-second or ticket out, exit ticket type thing. That is a best practice where it's proven if you include those things, kids learn more. Because you bring the idea of what they were supposed to learn that day back around at the end to do it. And that's something you want to look at. It's simple. All teachers know how to do it, but it's something that you got to enforce, that you really want to see that happening and so forth. So that's just an example of that walkthrough. I talked about the observation. I think you've seen observations before and what they look like. And then the last form you have there is the actual rating form that a teacher would use, an administrator would use for the year. They can be rated, as you can see, 3, 2, or 1. What they may get in the different domains. As of this time, we do not have where it says the building level scores. We don't have that data yet, but that would be inserted there. Where you see LEA selected measures, that would be if that SLM I was telling you about, if they completed that. Then we looked at, we assess it, and they could earn a 3, 2, or 1 there. And then you can see there at the side, classroom teacher summative rating. Then the points are put in those different areas. And at this point, that teacher would have like 2.05, but that's because they don't have the building level and the other things included yet. That's why. With that said, then they would be rated either distinguished based on the chart you see on the first page, satisfactory, unsatisfactory, or needs improvement, failing. You can see that on the back page. So that's the rating form that is used at the end of the year for each teacher. But again, as I said, the key thing to think about there is the fact that we don't have complete data to finish yet from the state. That when the state gives us that, provides those numbers, then we can insert that information. So that was quick discussion about 82, Act 82 to Act 13, walkthrough process, and observation, and you see the rating form there if you have questions. Any questions on that?
So
Okay, yes.
every walkthrough,
Yeah.
it's done in the Oley Valley School District by an administrator. That administrator meets with the teacher for a summary meeting.
They should, yes. Pardon, they meet with them and talk to them. When they do a walkthrough, they'll meet with the teacher there. That would be my understanding. And it should occur.
Thank you.
Does everybody get a walkthrough or just new teachers?
No, everyone should be doing, when you do walkthroughs, you do them with all the teachers. I've done with every teacher in the building and stuff that I have each year, and I meet with them myself. I do them all. I just, all walkthroughs, all observations.
Yeah, if we could just get the Danielson model,
Mhm.
like you said, the summary, the closure.
Yes.
If we could get teachers to do a set to open up,
Mhm.
you know, it's sometimes they just forget that part.
Yes.
It's so important to the kids.
Mhm.
You hit it right on the head.
Yes.
That,
And
that one sentence,
Mhm.
you know, is crucial.
it is, and it's linking totally what their objective or second question, they call it now, what that is, and interpret that. But it does give you a sense of what the teachers are doing. And
Do you do more walkthroughs for non-tenured?
yes, nor do you, well, I'd say walkthroughs and observations.
Okay.
Actually, more so observations that way. Do teachers, there a couple times a year to say we want to do observations.
Take you any more or less time than previously?
With this, with
Yeah.
walkthroughs?
With the whole new?
Oh, it would take more time. The big thing about this is administrators need the time, because if you want to do it, and I admit, sometimes when you do, and you have, depending on what's going on at the time, when you're doing observations for years, I know administrators get in there and you quick do them, you have the observation, but to really make it functional and make it serve well is when you have that time to sit down with the teacher, you review with them, and that's what I've tried to do, and I think administrators as well, is to actually, you set the time and you make it happen and really review it. If you're just having them come in and sign the paper, you're not getting much out of it.
So it's like any evaluation, you only get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
I'm just more curious if this is going to eat up even more of your time because they changed the way you have to do it now.
No, I would say for the most part, we were already heading in that direction
Okay.
because we did walkthroughs have been coming and commonplace as far as that goes. But it is weighted more as far as the observation. And I think that is true. I think that's important to consider. I think that is actually what the state did. I don't have a problem with that because we should know what the teacher.
You do all the observations, or do you have the assistant principal help you out with those? Or?
He maybe does when I have the two, where it's a new teacher, things like that, but I do everybody. As far as that's just me. I've always been that way. I feel it's important when a teacher, parent, particularly when a parent asks you a question and says, hey, I want to know, or they're complaining or questioning, I know that teacher. I have a sense of what they do. I want to make sure I know that. I think that's good, bad, or indifferent.
And the other thing that we really tried to do the second half of the year when we had everybody in place was to make sure that they were, especially with the two new ones, that they were also comparing. So if Dr. Rohr went in and observed Mrs. Jackson, and then Mr. Traber went in and observed Mrs. Jackson, they were comparing to make sure we're looking for the same things. And we're looking not for what the teacher was doing, but more what the students were or not doing, because that it's more important about what the students are learning or not learning than what the this kind of old sage on the sage type thing. Because you can be delivering a lesson and the teacher and the student's not learning. But to follow up on Ms. Perry's question, the tenured teachers are only required to have one formal observation. Non-tenured all must have two informals. We gear for every teacher to have no less than 10 documented walkthroughs. We do more, not all of them are always, documented. And then our non-tenured teachers, we try to double that with documentation, because if you have a non-tenured teacher who should not be in a classroom, we would rather know that right away in the first 2 years, not wait till year 3 when you're granting tenure, and then you have a problem, because a new teacher is a $2 million investment over the course of their career. So that we try to take care of that, but the hardest part with the Danielson model is it's a growth. It's based on growth and not on evaluation, and that's where the state kind of trips up, is the fact that it's very difficult to with accountability. So to use a growth model for accountability, So it's trying to get teachers to understand that also that not everybody is distinguished. You're not going to be distinguished in every category on every day. That's just not the way the world works for human beings. And everybody, no matter how great a teacher you are, and we have outstanding teachers, that everybody has a chance to grow, has places they can grow. So.
Well, and our state lost their direction with Danielson's model anyway, because she made it real clear when she taught me personally and the group that we had, that they were going in a different direction than she was going because they adapted to make changes to fit their needs, and they didn't like some of the things that she did anyway. So it was a different move, just like the lowering the total a little bit on the assessment, how that impacts the teacher, because there's been pressure by the teachers unions a long time now to get that changed. So.
Yeah, the interesting thing I think with when we do our evaluations, the formal, the write-up, the one page that he showed you on PAE Tech, was that without the SPP scores, which won't come out until sometime in the fall, is that some of our teachers came up on they're satisfactory, but on the needs improvement without the SPP scores. So even teachers that should have been proficient, but the way they changed the weighting was eye-opening to some of the teachers because of how the weighting scale had changed. So it'll be interesting to see what impact of the time that will have on which kind of worries me when I'm not big on state testing or federal testing, is the impact. Does that mean that public schools are now going to be forced to be teachers of the test or teachers of SPP?
That's exactly right.
And we've always
the
been
concerned, and that's the worry where we're heading down that road.
Yeah, we've always
That's
here,
right.
we've always been in this district teachers of students, and the test was, yes, it's nice and it matters when it's in the Reading Eagle, but our students produce and our students are excelling when they leave us, whether they were proficient or advanced or basic or below basic, but is that going to try to, if they have to play that game to not be just because of their evaluation tool or the principal's evaluation tool or any of our evaluation tools based on some arbitrary test score? And then the opt-outs, as you know, they killed us, especially in his building. There are almost a 10% difference in 7th and 8th grade scores in math because of the opt-outs. His opt-outs would have taken the PSSA. His scores were 10% higher in 7th and 8th grade math than what they came out to be. And we'll have those for you next month at curriculum meeting. But because we're so small, each one of those counts, each one of those opt-outs was a percentage. You can't show that in a paper. But
No, that's the.
But if you opted out at a Wilson, when you have 800 at Boyertown, when you have 800 students in a class, it wouldn't have mattered. But 7th and 8th grade the math scores look worse than they really are because of the opt-outs. And that's, Keystones just came in. I didn't get to see them. I know we were talking about them today in our meeting, so I'll get you those. We'll have all that for you next month.
One comment, I guess, a non-educator, used to doing evaluations and like from the industrial perspective. And from a school board perspective also, for many years, we had changes in Harrisburg all the time. I'm going back a lot of years ago. It was the flavor year, different program and the like. And then the state did settle on the Danielson model. That's been in place, 12, 15 years? So we're tweaking it. But I guess the good news to me is, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I think the good news to me is we're working with the same model. We're just tweaking how we score it and the like, more weighted, those sort of things. But the philosophy behind it, the 4 steps you talked about, everything else, are still the same steps we're talking about. A very solid program for 12, 15 years. So I think that's good. And maybe the politics gets involved a little bit in Harrisburg, but at least they haven't changed the program to something totally new every couple of years. It's been standard of it. So I find a little bit of comfort in that.
And it's still based on good teaching, which is what Danielson was.
It's
always
good model.
been. It's a good model.
Yeah, it is a good model.
They just need to stop playing.
I like the walkthrough idea, giving a much more comprehensive view of what's happening in the classroom as opposed to that one day that somebody's watching, and gets the children also used to having people coming in and observing. So I really like that idea.
And I think you, Dr. Shank, alluded to the fact too, that sometimes administrators, when I was showing Traver to do the walkthrough together, and then you can see differences in what they see and what I see, and I've done that before too with different, and that's always a positive too. When you have a couple of them, 2 or 3, go into class, observe the same class, you come back and you meet, and then you discuss, okay, what did you see? Oh, they saw this and I did. It's great learning for administrators and for teachers. Last part I had was the hiring process. Just a couple, as far as what it entails, briefly, basically, we usually post a position. Positions are usually posted on PA REAP, PSBA, Penn Links, PA Educator, the district website, the buildings, in the building specifically as well, and other areas. We review applicants, then the administrator will review the applicants that are posted in the different outlets, whatever we get, emails, sometimes you get specific emails from applicants, you look at them, so you review everybody that you have, you consider what's there. The teacher administrator will review, identify applicants to interview. What's nice about like PA REAP and some other venues that we use is it actually breaks it down, like all these applicants, they apply on there. You can pull up, you can look to see their GPA, what their certifications are, you see their resume, their work experience, all that data in one place. You can pull it. You can even, in some of those venues, type in, I want to look at a GPA between here and here. Not that that's all the time important, but obviously if somebody's applying, they have a 2.0 and they want to be your math teacher, I'm sorry, that's probably something you want to question there if they're going to be your math teacher, teaching algebra 2 or maybe even physics and so forth. So you do need to look at those things sometimes in particular, but it's nice that you can draw that information out. If there's sport, if there's certain clubs or activities that they need, you can pull out those applicants as well. So it's a real good, easy way to identify potential applicants and then tweak them down to where you want them to be. Usually when we do interviews, you can interview on average, I'd say 6 to 10 people. Last one I did, I know I interviewed at least 10 individuals. The interview team can consist of an administrator, teachers, staff, students, obviously if applicable, and timing and so forth. And we can have 1 or 2 more rounds, can also include a sample lesson demonstration. So depending on what we're doing, what we're interviewing for, the time of year and so forth, we also include sample lesson demonstrations as well. After all that, you come up before you offer somebody, you do reference checks, check those, make sure to see, talk to I in particular like to talk to the most recent employer, because I think that's important, and really hear from them if there is any concerns. And there's certain questions that we have that are asked, that you ask and can get that information, whether there's concerns or not. But we do then check references. And then if at the time, I've done it here already in this district when I've interviewed, we repost if necessary. If we have certain positions and in the interviews that we had, it didn't look too well, we'll repost it and then go through the process again and keep adding until we see somebody that we like. And what's been great about this group, I commend the school board for this, that we have the ability to look for people with experience. We have the ability to look for people that are new. We have the ability to look at anybody, because there's some districts that say, no, you're just hiring here and that's it. And others, but to have that flexibility is huge, because believe me, the challenges, and it is challenging today, getting staff members in particular for certain positions, you need to have that flexibility because you want somebody that can do the job. And that's important. So I commend the school board for that. So that's kind of my brief explanation of the process that we use when we hire, how we identify the applicants, what we do when we interview, the times we interview, and then reference check, and then obviously offering the answer.
And you use consistent questions for each candidate.
Yes.
You use a rubric to score them?
Yes. Each one that we do, there's usually a rubric that's attached to it, and then has where they are with the questions and look for. It's actually a look for each person interviewing. If they're a student or anybody, they can see, okay, well, did they say this? Yeah, some degree. Sometimes it's pretty obvious. Right? I mean, sometimes it's pretty easy to say yeah, no. And other times sometimes I sit there honestly and I'm like, I feel bad, but I'm actually spit it out. No. But yes.
And then based off like the top,
Yes.
then you have discussion.
Mm-hmm. And in all the years I've done it, it's very rare that I found that there's a huge disparity between people when you do it. Usually it's, I'd say, there are times, but it's very rare. 9 times out of 10, everybody was on board with it. It was obvious who the person was. That's most, it's just obvious.
Okay, good. Does that help address what your questions were, Dr. Parkin?
Great, man. Good. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, doctors.
Thank you.
Okay.
Number 2 is just a review. I handed out the Act 158, so you have it again, the graduation pathways. This is straight from, basically from PDE, and it has been sent out to junior parents. I can, say that most of our juniors or now seniors, I should say, are already on track. They are the ones that were not proficient or met the expectations have been notified. They are working with guidance or their case manager as far as what their pathway will be. Internships or BCTC, a lot of them are defaulting to the NOCTIs at BCTC. So we know that that's going to be another pathway for them. So these are what, they have to take the keystones for the class of 23 and beyond. And then they have to take them twice to take the remediation. All of those pieces, that's pathway number one. Pathway number two is the Keystone composite scores. The composite score that is listed is the one that is currently required. That does tend to change depending on who's sitting in the chair at PDE. There are a lot of changes happening at PDE right now. With who's the acting Secretary of Ed and the deputy secretaries right now. So, but that is where it is as going into the 22-23 school year. And then what you have to do with the scores, and then the composite scores. And then it goes on to lay out, your trigger scores, which for us are Algebra 1, Biology, and English 2, or what we call our Keystone trigger courses. You must have satisfactorily passed those three, and then for that pathway, and then you do your industry-based competencies, which is BCTC, and then the NOCTI, pre-NOCTI. Both we give the pre-NOCTI here at the high school for ag and engineering, and then we also have it at BCTC in their academies there. And then the NOCTI exams, we give them here in our CTCs as well as BCTC, and BCTC does a great job of communicating scores as soon as they get them. And that whole piece communication-wise has improved greatly over the last year and a half. So I commend BCTC for increasing their communication, getting those scores to us. Because that's going to be critical, because the students have to have all of their pieces in place in order to walk in graduation. And then pathway number 4 is the evidence base, which is their trigger scores, and then their internship, which is different than our internship that they can take during the school day. Has to be pre-approved, has to be no less than 100 hours, has to be in their future area of career, has to be logged, attendance, all the requirements are out there. We don't, can be paid, unpaid, but we do not transport. We have all the forms, has to be completed and signed off by May 15th of the graduation year. We are expanding that into local businesses, working very closely with some teachers as to our outreach right now through the foundation and through some other local community groups as just kind of setting up a base for that, bringing in speakers this fall here at the high school to expose some of our incoming juniors to have those opportunities so they can get that kind of taken care of if there's any concern that they may not be proficient on the Keystone exams. And then the pathway 5 is the alternate assessments, which is your SATs, your ACTs, your PSATs, with the current approved PDE approved scores. They are PD approved, the ASVAB scores, the advanced placement scores that you would need to achieve in order to use that pathway number 5. And the approved AP exam listing is also what you approved last month. And these are the ones that PDE approved. So we may have courses that are AP courses that students take here that are not on this list, but they are not accepted by PDE. And these could be online courses, or they could be in-person courses, or they could be at a university, but these are the only AP courses that PDE is accepting as part of a pathway number 5. And they give you the only ones that they're taking.
I think students can bounce from pathway to pathway through high school, depending on what they're doing.
They can, yes.
And guidance counselors are the ones that actually kind of track these pathways and the requirements for each.
Yes. Yep, and right now, everybody, you come into high school on the Keystone pathway, and then when you've taken the pathway twice, then we start looking at others. Or it's tracked also through their IEP, if then you know that you have a student who is not, if you're not PASA, which is our intellectually disabled students, or PASA kids, which is not taking the Keystone. That's a whole different arena. But yes, we do track them that way. We know that in some of our students, we are recommending that you may be proficient on the Keystone, but also go for the NOCTI, also go for your SAT score, also go for this. Knock it out as early as you can. So that way, if you know that you're going to work somewhere and we're pushing internships more and more, and we talked about that, Try to get an internship in your sophomore year, try to get an internship in your junior year, and not just like for this, but also for your career in college readiness and getting it on your, college resume. You can use it for this, even though you are proficient, and just build that portfolio. So you're not putting all of your eggs in the one basket, because if you got, I'm just thinking of a student that we were working with who's a senior at BCTC this year. If you happen to be sick on the day of that NAFI, or you happen to have a bad day, or you break up with your girlfriend, or, you're late to school or whatever, and that you blow that exam, you just lost your graduation, because you have to have completed one of these pathways to walk across the stage. Otherwise, you're in the August graduation. Then you get your diploma, but there's no, walking across the stage. There's no any of the other there's no graduation experience, I should say, without all of these requirements from the Department of Education.
I have a question.
Good.
Will there be a designated place for all this information on our website? So parents could go at any time and, just double check.
This is would be on the high school side of the website under the guidance department. And the guidance has pushed it out on their Twitter page as well.
And you said it was sent to
All the juniors, yes, in a letter with whether or not the letter, this plus the letter saying either you are on track and you have nothing to worry about, or you're not on track and this is what you need to do. All that went out actually about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, that takes some time.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Number 3 is the base contract for EduHealth contract services for 22-23. And then number 4 is EduHealth contract for the school psychologist, the second school psychologist, 22-23 school year as presented, the rate $78 per hour.
Just go ahead.
Dr. Shank, I have a question. So my understanding that EDU is basically like a recruiter for health services, like speech therapy, physical therapy, all of that.
Correct.
One of the things in their contract, and knowing the industry, I know how like companies get bought out, hands change. So the same company that, let's say, had this therapist available could be bought out by somebody else and no longer be a part or maybe even competitor for EDU Health. So what concerned me was having a 2-year non-compete. So basically, if a therapist worked for them and switched the jobs, they cannot be hired, even through the third agency. So that's going to really limit the access for a qualified, and I know the shortage of therapists, for qualified therapists for a school district. Is there any way to renegotiate that contract?
No.
So
there's
non-compete has nothing to do with us. Non-compete is between them and their employees. So I don't think we can't weigh in on the non-compete on their employees' contract.
No. There is a non-compete. It's with the school district. Let's say
What it is we can't hire their employee. For 2 years. So if you decided you wanted to put the school psychologist back on your payroll and not on EduHealth, you can't hire this person for 2 years.
No, not even that. It's through the third provider, even not like a direct. Yeah. So it's not even a secondary. It's like through another hand.
Yes,
so that creates a bit of a conflict.
That's standard language.
So there's no way to kind of shorten this, maybe even just a year, or just having.
No, this is standard language. This is probably the 3rd year we've used this contract. This is an annual renewal. This is not new.
All right.
Number 5 is to ratify the Access Learning Services Agreement, which is formerly Malvern Academy for 22-23 school year. It's a name change only. Access Learning is broken out from Malvern Academy. It's kind of because they have now added a autistic component to their therapeutic, which is excellent for us. They're still based out of Pottstown, but it's really going to help our therapeutic needs in the district. Number 6 is to ratify the agreement between Reading Hospital and the Oley Valley School District for a non-clinical medical internships for our district high school students. We currently have 4 into that program. And all that non-clinical means is they can't do any medical treatment, but they will be volunteering at the hospital. They will be in the areas. They just can't, you know, take care of anybody. So I have that together for you, and hopefully that will be a renewable moving forward, which ties right into our biomedical. We're very excited about that. Hope to be able to expand that into the Drexel Hospital too. Fingers crossed. We're just working on that. Number 7 is the ratify the 22-23 agreement with PA REAP for the advertising employment opportunities for the school district. Annual cost is $10.99. It went up $50. Last year was $10.49. Number
Dr.
8.
Shank, how many agencies do we use? Do you have like a total list with the numbers for them too? I understand this is just one of the ways we advertise, correct?
Yes, I answered that in the email already. You asked that in an email and I answered that question. I remember. And Dr. Rohr just answered that too. We use PA REAP, we use PA Educator.
No,
we use PSBA.
Yes, correct. And I asked like this one, you know, there's a number, how much annual cost? Do we have numbers for the other ones?
The other one cost about $1,200. That's PA Educator, and that was already approved earlier this year, I believe.
So the total we about spend on advertising, like roughly 3,000?
Correct. It's
Okay,
in the budget every year.
okay. That's it.
Number 8 is to ratify school-based access program local agency of participation agreement for the 22-23 school year. Number 9 is to approve the STEM program agreements for the 22-23 school year. We have 1 tuition student. Fleetwood Area School District, 1 full-time student. Number 10, to ratify the agreement with DocuSign for the use of for use in the Student Services Department for the period of November 30th, 2021 through November 29, 2022. Cost is $11.40. We are just that contract is an IU contract and it runs from November. We just 21, but we just actually entered that contract with them. For some reason, the IU has weird contracts. Look at that IU rep right now. Instead of on a fiscal year, they do November. So we just entered that July 1 on our behalf because that's when we do contracts. And then what is happening, if you've noticed, the Postal Service raised all their rates again, which is going to hurt student special ed because they send everything in paper. So we are now moving all of their paperwork, which is a ton of paperwork in student services, to DocuSign, since a lot of our meetings are still now through Zoom, that parents can go on and sign their IEPs, their RRs, their evaluations, all those other pieces electronically, and then send it back to us so that we don't have to worry about parents mailing, as well as the postal mail. And so in essence, you're going to save money by paying for DocuSign.
And will help compliance.
And help with compliance because we'll get it back. And that copying in paper and yes, and then also save on the time that people spend at a copier. So you actually get that back tenfold at the end. And then you'll see another one coming in November that will be for the year.
Right.
Because we wanted to do a partial and then we'll do the full year in November. But in essence, it'll save you money and time in the long run because you won't be paying the personnel costs on top of it to stuff envelopes and run through the copier and all that other stuff. So, motion to approve the STEM tuition student requirements as presented. That ties to SIP 15999. That's the CATS code. That is in that STEM students have to sign the requirements. The homeschool principals have to sign that requirement. That is part of the CATS audit, and that's part of the reauthorization that we are doing in the process right now, and the audits are coming for ag and STEM. Number 12, approve the following plan course outlines for use beginning with the 22-23 school year. The 30-day public review period has been completed. Art grade 6, 7, 8, financial math, Algebra 1A, 1B, Algebra 2 CP, Honors Algebra 2, History of the Holocaust, ELA grade 7.
Thank you for listening.
Can we, when it's presented for voting, can you please put them separate so to vote on them separately?
Each course?
My ELA grade 7, I do not want to vote for those books, no.
Those books are not new. Those books have been around since 1819.
Yeah, well, and I understand. Some of them, and I actually, I've read one, if I would sit and narrate my day, that's probably the extent of the language there is, plus some of the questionable areas there. So I really do not want my son's going in 7th grade. I would not want him to read half of those books.
Your son's in 8th grade, isn't he?
Oh, yeah,
All right,
never
so
mind.
It's a 30-day
This is a
review.
30-day review. When it comes time to vote on it, we can discuss that at that time.
It's completed.
So he missed that one thing. He
Oh,
dodged
yeah.
the bullet. But yes,
They've been sitting for 30 days.
The parents have the right to
Opt out.
substitute a book, so
Absolutely.
we shouldn't be making a decision based on our own personal belief for our own child. Looking at this for
Vote no.
all children. Yeah, and parents, I think, after all our discussions, they should know that if they want to pull one out, they can.
And they, so middle school, ELA uses in working with Mr. Keller, who's not with us this evening, but they use the same signature opt-out on the syllabus as on the books that the high school uses. So if somebody doesn't want to read The Hobbit, then you sign that you don't want to read it, and we substitute it just as we do any other book, it's parent choice.
will you have those substitutes listed on a website?
They're listed on the syllabuses.
Can I ask what book? Is there a book in particular, Maria, that you're referring to?
House arrest, even some of the Planet Middle School. There's just, I expect a better English. I expect better writing from any books that's introduced to the kids. And house arrest, okay, so you committed a crime and now we have to read about what you have to deal with sitting at home. I have a personal feeling on that. You commit the crime, you do the time.
All right, so the question at hand, I don't want to get into discussing this. The question at hand is you want to break this specific course out as its own motion, correct?
Yeah, so when we vote, because the last time when the things came up to the vote, we did not have a choice to actually vote on separate
This one out
issues.
on its own, correct? I don't want to sit here all night and discuss this. I just want to find out. You want to spit out ELA grade 7 as its own motion.
Correct.
All right, is there any problem with that?
The 4 other board members who agree with her.
First of all, does the committee agree? Okay, Maria, you're okay, Dawn, you okay with splitting out? Ask the committee members first.
Not because it's not a personal choice. This is, as a school board, we're representing the community, and parents have an
That's
option.
exactly right.
That's my standpoint, because we're not doing this personally.
When you have other things that kids could be learning from, which was much more educational, with much better language.
Ms. Piper,
So,
I
you
understand.
know-
I asked the question, the committee doesn't agree.
But
with-
yes, I would like to
so
split them.
You have the option to vote no that night on this motion.
Correct. So I have an option to vote on that particular curriculum, correct?
No, we're not splitting it out.
We have a question from the audience.
I just wanted to point back to the policy that we reviewed. You have to submit a request to review a book, so I think it would be a separate issue.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good point, thank you.
Keep going.
Yeah. keep going.
Okay, now motion number 13 is to approve the following plan course outlines to be placed on for 30-day public review. Tonight, we bring civics, earth space science, econ and financial literacy, integrated algebra 2, modern American history foundations, ELA grade 6, ELA grade 8. And those novels also are not, they've been around. But I did break them out just for transparency purposes. They are tweaks 6 and 8 just to align to some of the gaps we did find in the standards. American foundations, just so that the tweak in that, just so you know, if I know that's your area, Doc. That is where we teach the required civics exam that is required by the state. That's where that test is given, and then because you have to pass that before you graduate, is in 8th grade, so that you will see that's kind of the tweak that's there. We have very few left on the secondary level, 6 through 12, and then all of your curriculum 6 through 12 is updated as well. so they will slow down for you.
Good.
We're just trying to get compliant, as you know. Number 14, special ed comprehensive plan for 22-25. The required public or data review has been completed, and we're asking for approval so we can submit it to PDE by the 28th as required. Motion 15, to approve St. Luke's Lehigh Primary Care, Dr. Mary Fabian, as the Oley Valley District physician for a 3-year period, 22-23 through 24-25, and the costs are listed below.
No local position.
Correct.
Is she local or?
She is actually out of town. St. Joe's would not allow a local physician to participate. He's very upset. We want to do one more before he retires, but
Will this be a burden to us?
no, she's coming here.
Okay. Okay, good.
She will come here as we need her for physicals and consult with the nurses, whether it's teletherapy or telemedicine or whatever we need to do. And then there is some St. Luke's that she will consult with locally, the health centers. But yeah, she's kind of based out of there. The nurses are very happy, and she does consult with other local districts. But we were very upset that Dr. Hornicle would not be able to finish with us because she's been amazing over the years. 16 is the 22-23 Chapter 339 for advisory board members to meet PDE requirements. That is as listed. I'm not going to read them. 17 is the STEM advisory board members as required under the Career Technical Education Program requirements. They're all listed. And that's it for curriculum. And after that, the next meeting is August.
Any other questions on the curriculum? Property and transportation.
All right. Dr. Shank, you want to go?
There you go.
Number 1, we talked about a little bit before the board meeting last in June, to ratify the agreement with House Services for the brick repair, repointing, and sealing at the elementary school. Cost not to exceed $203,665, and that is from the correct capital reserve account. The amount of work that we have to do will extend into the start of the school year and will hopefully be done somewhere near the fair week. So we will have some issues with sound and drilling, but we don't have a choice. That will be done. So then you should be good to go if you stay on a preventative maintenance plan. That is going to be key. Number 2 is to approve any.
Yeah, Dr. Shank, who's going to be doing the maintenance plan once it's done? Is that the same company? Do we have any kind of maintenance?
Depends on who you hire as your facilities director.
Okay. So, but at the moment we don't have one, right?
I had one, but I'm not going to be here, remember? You need to hire a facilities director. To approve Amy Quigley, Neubauer, and Emmy Lentz as supervisors of transportation for the Oley Valley School District for the 22-23 school year with responsibilities as stated in the contract dated September 4th, 2016. Amy will be taking care of the HR side of the house for Quigley, the drivers, required paperwork, personnel issues, all that kind of stuff. And then Emmy will take care of helping us with consolidation of runs, drivers, and assignments. And the news of the day, we are, a month out. We need 15 drivers, and I have 12. Short 4 van drivers, so we are looking to consolidate runs. And we're meeting with Quigley again. So just so you know, it's going to be another year of short bus drivers. And everybody's having that problem. I've talked to some other places. It's everywhere. Just so we're trying to run with what we know are confirmed drivers. So our buses are going to be full. Our secondary buses are going to be full. So just so that you know that we're going to get complaints on that. The runs are running about an hour in length. So we did have to make some adjustments a little bit on our instructional schedules to buy the time in the afternoon between secondary and elementary to get the buses in on time down there. But I don't really have a choice. I don't want to roster 15 buses and then have 12 drivers and then be consolidating and really messing it up for parents or having to done triple runs like we did last year, because I think that was worse than just, we have to put three high school kids in a seat. We'll have to figure it out until we can get confirmed drivers and train. So It could be a little rough run, or rough start for drivers at the beginning of the year, but I'm just glad we're not being a boom, so. Number 3 is Quigley bus service. The daily rate, $158.79 for a single run. Right now, I have no single runs rostered. That would be more if we have to run a single for secondary just because of the time factor. Following district employees is operating district vehicles, district tractors, and our equipment. They are listed. They are our maintenance guys. That's for insurance purposes. Ratify van driver for 21-22. She's driving ESY, and then also the 22-23. That list I will probably also have for you on Wednesday as everybody's getting all their driver's license run for the 22-23 school year. So you'll start to see a ton of van drivers coming through. Number 7 is to ratify the agreement with Suburban Water Technology for biannual water softener services for the high school, middle school, and elementary. Cost is $1,500. 8 is to ratify the agreement with Berkshire Systems to replace the paging and clock systems at the middle school. Cost not to exceed $20,000. $827. The entire paging system and the electronic clock system failed the last week of school in the middle school. So we were able to rig it to get through, because if you don't have a paging system and an intercom system, you cannot open the building. So that's why that's coming in as a ratification. But now you're good to go for another, knock on wood, if you take care of it, 15 years. Number 9 is to ratify the agreement with McClure Company to replace the 7 rooftop units we've been talking about, 2 at the middle school, 5 at the high school. Cost not to exceed $999,149. Includes the structural engineering study for the high school because of the age of the building. We had to do structural engineering for the last set we did. That is out of the bond proceeds.
Dr. Shank, what? Sorry. The rooftop units, what are they?
HVAC units that control heat and air conditioning.
Okay. Because the next number 10, it was also elementary and the middle school and was with a different company. And I was wondering if McClure, I've looked them up, that's what it looked like. They were providing all energy supplies, including HVAC. So shouldn't we try to consolidate one company doing all of that? Wouldn't that be more cost effective?
No. Under the McClure contract, as I was stating, under McClure, that number at $999,149, the original number, just to give the board an idea, they came in originally at over $1.23 million, and we were able to negotiate them down to that $999. And I did have on your quote that was posted, they came in at $200,000 saving, but the original one was actually higher than that. So we were able to negotiate and kind of bring their numbers down based on the fact that we've used them for the other units here at the high school. Which they did an outstanding job maintaining the roof warranties and working with Tremco. And also, if you watched it earlier in June, everybody was in the high school with the cranes and how they seamlessly removed those 1990 units and replaced them without any hitches or without any issues. It was kind of neat to watch it when you're not in the engineering mechanical world. Just the size of those ton units, it was amazing. They're doing a really nice job. Number 10 is one that we just kind of got hit with. Optimum Controls is the control systems back end of all of your equipment. Optimum Controls is Honeywell, which is, if you know, the elementary system is a pneumatic system from the 92. When we put the new boilers and the new chillers in at the elementary, which are running beautifully, the problem is that we couldn't figure out why we can't control the temperatures in the building. It's either freezing cold or it's hot. So, because now we actually have equipment that works, which is really great. And we got the motors running and everything's hooked up, and we thought we were actually going to not have people complaining at least about the temperature in the building. But we couldn't figure it out. So I brought some people in and we were kind of going through it, and what we found was, and we've been kind of nursing this system along for the last, 5 or 6 years, because it's just, trying to keep things running as much as we can. But the control system, the back end system, the sensors, the wiring, the piping, all of that stuff from 2005, and the computer system that controls the temperatures, the thermostats, the wiring, the sensors, all that kind of VF3 drives, the fan motors, all of that is shot. We can't even get parts on eBay. which is kind of where we were getting parts from, just to give you an idea. So that is beyond end of life, but the nice thing is it goes back to 2005. You're sitting in 2022, you got more than your money out of that building. The problem is that you're looking at that building alone is $770-some thousand to replace that system. But if you're familiar with that system or that building, and those that live in that elementary building, and I'm looking at the future president out there, know that we have a huge problem with humidity in that building and ceiling tiles, and every summer in August we have like a mildew issue in the lower ends of those wings, and we've had for years. And I think it predates me. I'm looking at what this is part of your problem is you don't have a dehumidification system in there. That's all built into this. That will take care of all of these pieces. And I didn't follow it, Mr. Engineer Man. But somehow there's actually water running in lines that should not have water in them, which is causing, because we were trying to figure out where we thought we had a leak, but there was water running in pipes that shouldn't have water running in them. And somehow it's tied to this. And some of the thermostats in some of the rooms aren't even actually hooked up. So when the teachers were trying to adjust them and they couldn't figure out why they couldn't get cooler and hotter, they're not even hooked up. So that's where this 700-some thousand is coming from. Middle school is within 2 to 3 years of end of life, which is like 365, something like that, thousand. So I had document controls kind of price that out. High school is doing really well. We did that one a few years ago. I think so. Remember right? That is also a Honeywell system. So all 3 of your buildings would be on the same. You could wait on the middle school if you chose to, knowing you would have to do it in 2 or 3 years. But I did work with them, and I want to work with them a little more on negotiations. But I didn't want to hold it to just the meeting timing, because this all kind of went down Saturday, and Friday and Saturday, I should say. But as far as the numbers, and just to find out where the board is at on it. Elementary, I don't see how we can even get through the year without doing something. They would work. These are second shift numbers, and in the world of mechanical, you have to pay more of a premium because we can't get it all done because they can't have to go. They can't deal with children there in order to run the lines and do what they need to do. But anyway, I hadn't put the middle school on it in case of what kind of price break we can do, but we're doing them both together because of mobilization, and you don't have to, come back. The industry is telling you know more than I do, but industry is telling me that in 23 and 24, you're looking at 5 to 6% increases in construction costs if you go forward. I don't know if that's what you're hearing. So that if you do want to wait on the middle school, you can do that. You do have the 2019 bond coming off in 23. You can borrow money to do it, but then you're also looking at prices going up. What you want to do with that. This is where you're kind of at with the savings right now of about 113 if you do them together. Middle school is going to need to be done. You can wait till it crashes. You can wait till we have a problem. You can do them together. If you want to work more than that 10% discount with him. So this is kind of in my world a cost not to exceed number. I want to see if I can get him down given some of the other work he's done. Optimum has done here at the high school. They have not, some of this work Optimum has done for us at this point. He has not really billed us for, which has been great. They have been great to work with. They've been great to work with us at the high school and trying to problem solve some of these issues. But the elementary does have a problem, and it is going to be a problem if we don't take action soon. They will start as soon as we get you give me the go at the elementary, but it is a good, probably 5-6 month process working second shift because we don't have the summer.
So they'll keep the school.
Oh, we'll be able to run, yeah. Yeah, that is for second shift, third shift. But we'll have
I'm just curious
operations.
about as it's taking this thing apart, the ripple effect that, oh my gosh, I just lost 6 rooms. And
No,
they know what they're doing like that.
Yeah, they'll be able to work and have us operational during the day.
What would the price be just to do the elementary school?
Just elementary was $751, $397.
Could you repeat again?
$751, $397. Middle school is $379, $527.
And your cost is not to exceed the $1 million mark there.
That's where I want to get him and then try
You
to,
can get him,
I want to get him down even a little lower if I can. He is a resident and, he's been great to work with, and that's where I got the 10% from, and they've done a lot of work for us. I don't know how much more I can get him down off that 10%, but I can try.
I'm sure you can.
So I'm trying to look at it as a not to exceed number.
Right. I would say we definitely want to see the elementary move on that, and we'd like to see a total number that we can get to on both of them, because I foresee, as Mr. Pollock said, trouble coming down the road. If we can do it and get it done and get a good number, then we're done with it.
And you know how much what we've spent on that middle school,
Yeah.
trying to get it back
Yeah,
over the years.
absolutely.
That's my concern, is I don't want to lose what we've
Right.
gained.
That's just me. I go for it.
Then those chillers, you can wait. I mean, chillers you can hold on. I can get them through another year or two on those. I mean, you'd be all right. They need to be done, but it's not like they're urgent done.
So Dr. Shane, couple questions. Would those new units on middle school be complementary to the system they're installing?
Yes.
Okay, and on elementary school, how old are those units were? The one-
Elementary, we're not replacing units at the
No, I
elementary.
understand, but how
How old?
old are they?
The original?
Yeah, they're original.
Which is-
I just said earlier, I said that they're 2005.
Okay, so the elementary school, correct? But we still don't understand where the water coming from. Is it condensation? What is the problem with that?
It's all part of the issue that there is no working control systems in the middle school. So there are areas where there's no dampers, there's no valves, there's no regulation of the water flows that need to be controlled, because there's no head software control systems and no sensors controlling the building's HVAC system that is working. So what should be on and off and occupied and unoccupied mode is not running.
Okay, so there would be, and this company understands the problem and they guarantee to fix it, correct?
Why would I hire a company that wouldn't?
It's a question.
Yes.
Okay, and in their contract, I've noticed that when it comes to individual classrooms, there's some things that they're saying not included in repairs. I said specifically the wiring for individual classrooms would not be included. And could that be an additional cost later on?
Yes. That doesn't come out of this money. That's a different place. That's done by Garinger. It's another contractor that we use for different things.
Okay. Okay.
Go. 11 and 12 go together, just so that you understand because of the changes in how we did the cafeteria at the high school with their upgrades and the scatter system and all of that. Just so the board's aware, I did offer, and I don't know if they're going to do it. I've been working with Mr. Keller, I didn't realize he was going to be here tonight. I've been working with Mr. Keller and the Popeye people, and offered them the elementary, because the elementary cafeteria is bigger than the high school. It has the stage for music performances. The cafeteria kitchen is bigger. They actually have 2 kettles that they use to boil the Popeye, that tilt, that are bigger than the ones we had at the high school. And they have more ovens and steamers at the elementary because they serve more children than we did at the high school. And has better parking than the high school. And they have a place out back, if you zoom around the back, that you could actually do takeout. Because we could pull a warmer out there and just, here's your Popeye and like zoom and go takeout.
Outside the box now, let's not get crazy.
Oh, I'm sorry, but
Carried away.
So what did they say to that offer?
Mr. Keller liked it. He's going to take it back to the people, the Popeye peoples. But the useless superintendent, as it was put on Facebook, which is myself, I'm going to get a new badge that says useless evil superintendent now.
Oh.
They don't know if that's going to work, because I reminded them if they go to BCTC, not that BCTC would be a problem, they have 1 kettle and they would have to park at the elementary. And I'm not sure that people would walk through the grass from the elementary over to BCTC, just knowing that things at BCTC when people like to complain about that. So I did offer that. because we would still staff it, and then we get rid of the little bench seats at the elementary, because I don't know about anybody else, but trying to crawl in and out of those little bench seats is a little problem. But we have enough tables and chairs from testing that we could seat over 350 people, adult people in the elementary comfortably, and actually serve more people and more room than the high
How
school.
many people typically stay?
A lot of people,
Some people stay.
yeah, and then we have the music and,
1,200 meals.
Right,
Yeah.
I thought most of us take that.
900 could potentially sit.
Yeah, for a while, for a while.
Okay.
so just so you know.
Okay.
So the
We have
useless,
nothing in writing from the Hot Pot Association.
no, I work for Mr. Keller, because
Great
Yeah.
idea, though.
So,
Great idea.
just so you know, the useless superintendent, that's what I offer. But anyway, so I put these on so that at least that everybody knows you're paying their bills. So motion 11 and 12 basically is the same thing we've used for the last few years. That just says that we will pay the bills, and then I'll move the money around to make sure that everything is where it needs to be, so that we don't have an audit issue between Fund 51 and,
Is me okay with this? You okay with it?
no, but I'll explain it to her.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, before she strokes out, so.
Just smile and nod.
Next to Hot
Pot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I was just happy, like, you need to know that for Ming last week, the auditors here were here 2 days and they were gone. That's how incredible this business manager is, so. I thought they'd be here like almost a week, and they were out by Tuesday, and they were very happy. So when auditors are happy, we are happy. So that's what motion 11 and 12 are, is basically just how we pay for the pot pie expenses for personnel and employee rates and all that kind of stuff. So, and I'll go over all that if they choose to use it. But you may hear something, because you usually hear from the Popeye people, and you usually hear from the Popeye people too, so. And you are from the Popeye people.
I hear from the
So, so that was what I told the Popeye people, so. Okay, student activities.
Well, you good? Ms. Piper, you good? We're done with P&T?
Yep.
Mr. Rhodes. Want to join us?
Grab a mic. Speak loud.
He's sitting down. Just turn your mic back on for me.
Okay, so reporting back from our June meeting, information that I got from speaking to Gilbert's athletic director, head boys coach, their girls coach has left. They now have a vacancy for their head girls position, and as well as their youth director. And I pulled all of the numbers from the BCI of the schools that reported. Of the boys teams, about half had enough for a JV team. Muhlenberg originally had 32 in the roster. However, as we know, that does not mean there's always 32 that are there that night. For various different reasons, some can be closed, some can't. But that is times when they were planning a team that they thought were going to have JV, but they ultimately did not have enough to feel like they safely could play 2 games back to back, which I know how that can be difficult when you're teetering on the edge of having JV as well as varsity. So that was the information that I got as far as their JV. The coaching staff did ask that when parents or players have concerns, that they speak to them. Kind of caught him off guard when I was talking to him and explains this, but he did reiterate that the Oley players were never late and they have never had any issues accommodating our students, and that all of our players are great representatives. New, but he confirmed that as well when I spoke with the head coach. So again, he wants them to communicate with them. When I spoke with their youth director, head of their youth program in 2020, it was canceled because of COVID, no sports in 2020. 2021, there was no field availability, and they had also reached out to us, but most of the districts in spring 21 yet were not allowing outside youth on the school properties. They were still limited to school only. So in November of 21, they had a youth camp for grades K through 8, so this could be used in. And then this past spring season, they had a K-2 boys and girls skills group. They had a 3rd and 4th grade boys team. They did not have enough for the 5th, 6th, or 7th, 8th grade boys teams and girls teams. One thing that he explained to me was that there's other programs in Berks that did not have all 3 levels. And that what is happening is, I guess the league has a rule that says you must play for your home league team unless they don't have it. But what kids are doing and parents are doing is they're going out and going to other schools and saying they don't have it. Maybe they would have it. So people are leaving and they're just kind of going, almost making it like a club where you're just picking where you're going. which is one of the reasons why they were thinking that they are losing players out of their, not for, I shouldn't even say losing, but getting enough players to field all of their youth teams. But we have promoted, they have always sent flyers and made copies and handed out that invites our kids to play with their youth program with the registration information. And I encourage our parents to get involved and promote within our community, but also promote their youth program as well. Have a co-op there, and helping with the management, not just, sending your kid there. They need help, just like our youth needs help with all the programs that they have with the numbers. So that was pretty much the information that I got on the lacrosse. I don't know if there's any questions about that. Tying in with that, which will tie into the water polo and swim as well. I did reach out to the District 3, some of the District 3 committee members to ask them again about changing co-ops and how they would view that. Obviously, they couldn't give me a straight yes, no, without having all information, but they did lean towards that. They thought that that would be against PWA for competitive, well, they knew it was a competitive, that would be against PWA. But one thing that they said, I guess, at the last District 3 meeting is the District 3 committee, at least, has a lot of concerns right now with the mega co-ops. I think we touched on basically the last meeting. It's kind of one of those, I just explained this, Mr. Carr and Evan, these are one of our fabulous swimmers, which I don't know if they'll want to speak here in a little bit. But one thing I explained to them is PWA bylaws don't necessarily explain how you can have these mega co-ops, but there's no language that prohibits them. So that's why for a long time, everyone just assumed it had to be 2 schools, but there's nothing there that says you can't. There is now a lot of people, and here in the District 3 community is discussing this. I have a feeling this will work its way up. What they do with it, I don't know. I can't say that they will do away with it or they won't. One thing though is usually when a co-op is in place, past practice of PWA is anyone that's involved in it, they would change the rules. We were in a mega co-op. Anyone who was in it is grandfathered. Again, that's if they continue the rules the way they are now. There's nothing to say that that would be. And some of the things with PWA, if you have heard through the grapevine, they were actually considering 3 things right now that were just passed in the first reading. One is NIL, which is name, image, likeness of kids getting sponsorships. Personally, it's coming anyways, so I do think it's right for them to get out in front of it. And the vast majority of kids are not, I think kids are not going to see, especially small district like this. You're talking big time football or basketball that would be potentially getting with that. They're looking at putting rules into place there. Essentially, every state that touches us already has that in place. Everybody's kind of waiting to see how their policies work, but I think they want to get the lawsuits there. So that's one thing. Second thing is they are, this year after we reported all of our enrollments, they came back and said, oh no, you should be reported all BCTC students as, I don't want to say alternative ed, but there's different, homeschool, alternative, all that. BCTC was then counted at only 10%, which we never did before. So after they classified everything, we had to resubmit numbers and pull BCTC out because they did have it as technical school, but everyone, well, I was 98% of the schools in the state thought that was if you were a full-time, like York has, York VOTEC, where you're go there, full-time student, and so we assumed if you're just going part-time, so we didn't report that. So they got pulled out as 10%. PWA has now passed on a first reading basis to go back and say, we're using PIMS data and everyone counts. Which could throw a monkey wrench into co-ops where when they say a school has to have 300 or less. Now, a lot of schools who were 300 or less are no longer 300 or less. It will be, but not a problem for us. But I mentioned that because Fleetwood could not. So some of, I just not saying that we're going to go back co-op back or anything like that. But Fleetwood could end up in a situation where they're over to 300. Will PWA change 300? Again, they go through a 3-meeting basis, but that's the one thing that they are considering. And then the last thing that they are considering, share the letters of correspondence that we have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we brought to PWA's attention some rules that are definitely not fair with the way they count private school, exchange students, transfers, things like that. essentially, we have now lost 2 state championships to Wyoming Seminary, who was a boarding school, who had 3 international exchange students start for them this year. They made it known these international players were coming in, so I questioned, okay, why aren't they a transfer? Well, not only did they not count as a transfer, because they were a boarding student, they don't even have to report it. They're just a student there. So we questioned PIAA on this. In this, I questioned why football and basketball had a competition formula that pushes teams up the classification. If you earn so many competition points, you have so many transfers. Now, because they're not classified as transfers, it may not matter. But what PIAA did now is voted on a first reading basis that said, we're going to apply the competition formula to all sports. The transfers don't matter anymore. So potentially we're looking at, if this passes where it is right now, they haven't said how many points it would be, but I would expect that in 2 years, if our field hockey team again would advance far enough the next 2 years, we won't know that. So they're just pushing everyone up. So first reading, we'll see how that all plays out. I don't know where it came from. Outside they discussed it a little bit, but originally when they put that competition formula in place, it was geared really toward the transfers, not just teams that were winning on a regular basis. It was winning and you were getting transfers. But if you saw the news, I think there was 3 or 4 football schools that appealed their move up and they let all of them stay back down. So essentially they're going back on. But I think that's probably one of the reasons why transfers are being pulled out. But just some information there that well, and their next 2 meetings, if that gets done, the second and third reading, could drastically change. Nothing worrying in the start next year, 22, 23, 24 is the start of the 2-year cycle. Nothing in the next 2 years will really change with that stuff. But messaging to our district, we got full on board to let them know that we definitely oppose classifications based solely on success, especially when you're dealing with disparities there. So, anything else with lacrosse before we move on to water polo and swimming?
Yeah, I did not send that after the comment was made about Wyoming Seminary, that they only have 1 more year and then a coach retires and they won't be winning anymore, so we shouldn't worry about it.
Oh, okay.
That way, it took me a week to come back down from my head exploding. If that's the philosophy, then there's no point in banging your heads
And
together.
at the
But your letter was really well done. I mean, you handled that.
Convention, I'm the first county delegate to the state AD association. So I put a motion forward there, which was unanimously approved, to change boarding schools not having this essentially immunity. But yet, that was unanimous within the state AD association and that's in the state. So that response when I asked them how that interpretation that they were a boarding student, they're not a transfer. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But
They live
yeah,
there.
Yeah.
They show up on the front
Yeah.
porch and rap on the door, they're accepted.
As long as they are a boarding student staying on campus,
Exactly.
they do not have
Exactly.
to.
They live there. The residents.
So,
Okay.
okay, on to water polo and swimming again. Mr. Carl is here with his son Evan, who was 2-time district medals this year, right? Evan, he went and qualified for the state championships, was not available to swim at the state championships, but his sister is Mary, who was 2-time district champion and also 2-time medalist at the state today. She's not able to be here today. So I don't know if you want to say anything. If not, if you just want me to give them basics or.
I'm just here to support my kids and obviously the swimmers district. Being in the sport 9 years, you have a handful of kids that religiously swim, probably 4 or 5. You probably would get a couple more, maybe, into these programs. It's a great opportunity for them. I think that, I think we're okay the way we've been swimming in the past, not necessarily in the co-op. All the parents are okay with that. We've been doing it. My wife has helped out as acting coach at some of these meetings we go to. The one thing that would be nice is, there's no offering for water polo right now. And to be able to do water polo with Exeter, I think would be a great thing to offer for the handful of kids that we may have that's basically it. I mean, obviously, Evan would be here, sit through this for a long while in the summer. It means a lot to him,
Good
so,
experience.
you know, it's a good experience for him. So
Absolutely.
I didn't have to drag him, I can say that, so.
And they are very committed, and I thank Mrs. Carl for all that she does as their volunteer coach. For every year.
She would be here as well, but
She does.
Mary and Lois are at nationals right now. So they're down in North Carolina, they're swimming at the nationals.
What can we do to help?
So, my recommendation, so, and speaking more with Dexter, one thing I know when we talked last meeting, obviously there's a cost to it. One thing that my concern was when we're working with co-ops, transportation, and again, as Dr. Shane said, right now, all transportation co-ops right now is gonna be availability to drivers, you know, and whether or not we're putting messages out asking for your parents that volunteer to drive our vans, if our vans are available, you know, there's pretty much everything's gonna be on the table there to try to make that work. One thing with those water polo and swim and extra that they are evening practices. So pretty much regardless, we will be transporting to practices. You know, one concern and the swimming families, you know, I said this and they understand it is they are very accommodating right now to take their child and make it work. But I said, I explained to them as a board, you have to make a decision where you may get kids who want to sign up and do it, who don't have parents that can take them at that time. So the co-op is for everyone in the district, although co-op, as we know, is really for kids who are dedicated and are going to have to stick it out. So your kid who maybe just wants to try something usually isn't. My recommendation, you know, would be give them the opportunity and I make it work for water polo. Kind of my understanding, and Evan, you may know this or not, I don't know if the other swimmers are really as interested in water polo. I think he's the main one that has that interest. It's one of their sports. It's I wouldn't want to be doing it. It's hard. You know, and it takes a lot of ability. You know, the swimming, you know, again, there's pros and cons of both. You know, they would be going up to 3A level, or top swimmers could do that, but it would give them more opportunities to compete and train on a daily basis. But you know, talking to them, I think, you know, they're open either way there.
What's extra, okay?
Exeter is going to, yes, Exeter is going to approve it. Actually, they kind of thought it was going to be a done deal, and their coach is already trying to, you know, invite their kids to the water polo part of it. But, you know, that would be, you know, that's one of the, give me the direction. In August is when we would get an agreement together with them, and have that approved. Swimming technically, again, you could get bucket there down the road, but, it's a winter sport, water polo. So we would need to decide and get that approval process going, but it would be okay to approve that, because we wouldn't have an actual agreement in place.
So you're saying we could wait on the swimming, but we
could
also
yes.
do both.
Right. We could do both, or we could just do water polo at this point, you know, because of the season that way. Pretty much the main thing would be putting that application in the schedule and then final approval in August. You know, I don't think it, you know, again, you know, we explained how Exeter charges. I can't give you an exact amount of how they're going to charge. I can say, you know, it's not cheap, but at the same time, they are basing it off of their actual expenses. And that is one thing where I know co-ops aren't necessarily always the most ideal and liked by kids and parents, because it's not our own team. But being a small district where they play kids in class, you know, it gives our kids opportunities to do things that they would.
I know the group of girls, or the Grimm girls as well. And I'll tell you, the small group of swimmers we have are excellent swimmers. It's not like we have a bunch of mediocre swimmers. We have excellent that can really do some damage, I think. You know,
Like I said, the pro of them is more trained to do even better. You know, they are swimming at the club level. You know, the difference of a 2A and a 3A.
Sure.
You know, they may not win as many medals, but I think, again, I don't want to speak for them, but in conversations with them, I think the group coming through right now would rather have that opportunity to have that extra training and maybe not win as many medals, but have that opportunity to train that way. But it is definitely a handoff. And I will say, some of the families in the past who have had very good swimmers, they like being independent, like being 2A. You know, so that is, there's pros and cons both when you're looking at the swimming side. But if they're truly committed and want the additional training and be able to go to meets on a regular basis, being part of the team.
So young man, what do you want to do?
I mean, I really want to play water polo. Right? I want to be able to play on a team. I played leagues and like clinics for water
Yeah.
polo, and it's something I like genuinely enjoy. Just playing out here.
And you're good, right? Obviously better than you.
Oh, wow. I want to see you in the Olympics, no pressure.
It's all relative, I guess.
It's all relative.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, go ahead, Maria.
Yes, so if we approve, when would the sports would start? How long would they run? Would they be just like fall, winter, all seasons?
No, it's
What
just, it's by
season?
sport.
Waterpolo
By
is
sport.
fall.
Yeah,
So-
so fall is fall, swimming is a winter sport. And the co-ops are in place, I have to look at it because they have changed this. There is a timeline as far as when, essentially they're in place until the schools dissolve them. You know, first year or two, both schools have to agree to do it. After that, then one school will just say we want out.
At what age would they start? What grade?
It is only high school. There is no middle school water polo or swimming.
Also, would they also be considered sports with NCAA for college?
Yeah, they could. If they're part of a team, they could be recruited from colleges.
Yeah, are you asking about recruitment? I mean, we had one of our senior swimmers who didn't even swim as an independent Oley swimmer for the last 2 years, is going to Shippensburg to swim this next year.
Yeah, there is actually, was very interesting because I was reached out with one of my kids with NCAA to start their resume to help them towards college with specifically sports in mind. So is like water polo one of those two? Would that
Schools that
help the
recruit for
kids that
water polo?
participate?
Yeah.
And swimming.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like some sports are not part of that program, but some are. So I was wondering if water polo was one of them in the program.
I think pretty much any sport these kids play, there's somebody
Yeah,
at the
there's
school out there.
some
that-
school that has a program.
Right.
NCAA, guaranteed.
I would say in all sports, though, for the most part, outside of football, where there is really no club, anyone who is going to compete at the collegiate level is playing club. They're not just high school coaches or college coaches are no longer really come down to schools and to recruit unless they're already on the radar. Yeah, that's generalization there.
So we can hold on swimming. What's the timeline on swimming? We need to get.
Swimming, we would need to have if they would do it approved by October, that season starts.
Can we get a quote for both now?
Yeah.
So we know financially what's gonna be budgeted back?
You can handle this out of your budget?
I'll move the money. I'll find it.
I'm just thinking, and you're right.
What, the water polo-
Tonight, we already expended probably close to $3.5 million, and this young man's sitting here in pain right now. So, yeah, get used to it. Yeah.
I mean, there's ways to.
That's
Is
fine.
there any concerns with swimming? We want to.
Well, the only concern that I had, that was brought to me with swimming, is the fact that they will not, the independents have done really well in 2A. And that they have gotten noticed in 2A, and that they will not, they've kind of formed their own unofficial team in the blue and white. And then with Exeter, that they will be competing, on a larger team, and that some of our good swimmers, strong swimmers who may not be top swimmers, will they get the pool time that they would otherwise not, that they otherwise would get as an independent in 3A? Like, will they get the times, will they get the full time to get the times that they would get in 2A to be able to advance, to get the exposure, to get the college scholarships? Like, it's that pros and cons piece, because they were, I mean, even watching them, talking to some of the kids this year, because they did extremely well, the pride that they exhibited in wearing the blue and white versus the Exeter, as the independents in the 2A, and being able to really excel and getting noticed for college, not just this year, but over the years, our swimmers have done really well and gotten noticed by colleges. So there's the pros and cons of that as well. The water polo, I totally agree with, and I do think you need to move on that. And you're probably only talking minus the transportation piece, because that's, I mean, I don't know how we're gonna find van drivers, let alone, that's gonna have to be understood from the beginning with parents that we will not guarantee you transportation in any of our co-ops because we don't have drivers. I'm just gonna struggle to get them to school, but that piece of money is, we will find. I mean, I can fundraise that if I have to. I mean, I think we fundraised about 40 grand last year. So if I have to find it that way, we'll find it. It's worth it. But the swimming piece is, that's another one that you gotta look at it from both sides of the house, but it comes down to what the swimmers want. Do they want the team?
So Wednesday we'll vote on water polo.
So
Well-
I'll need to hold it till August just because of the actual language of the
Oh,
contract. Yeah, so as far as I need to let Exeter know, yes, work on that contract that you. can see
So
in August.
For water
Yeah.
polo.
All right, so then I'll do the motion to direct the administration to proceed with the director that develop the co-op for approval in August
For water
for
polo.
water. Oh,
If he comes to every board meeting. No, just kidding.
Might be a deal breaker.
Wednesday.
Just kidding.
And I can try to get more information. Those that we have as far as.
Yeah.
Would you rather be 2A and have better chance of medaling or be part of B?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I think
Sometimes
that's-
let us know then what.
And like I said, it is one that, it's definitely has changed over the years, it's been on, so it is a hard decision that way, but I will say.
I would like to
Our
know.
swimming parents have been very supportive of.
and they have,
Trying it.
and we kind of know who they are. I mean, and we do have some new ones coming to the high school that will be swimming for the first time for us in high school. Like, if I'm a freshman or sophomore, what do I want for my high school career? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just, if we can get their voice in this, you know what I mean, that way, because it's really,
Yeah.
there's two paths.
Yeah. Yeah, for the most part, it's 3 families. It's a lot of siblings too, so I'll get that information.
And then, I did that only so we could stop the rumor mill.
Good.
If you direct us to proceed with, you got it.
Awesome.
I have a question.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Yes, Maria.
Yes, it's with driving, could parents be van drivers if they're approved?
Yes, if they're approved, they have to have their clearances, so that is one of the things that we're gonna put out, that if there are parents that are willing to do it, that they would have to have their clearances, go through the same driver's background check. One thing that I think there's a misconception out there is that when you as the board approve all of the staff members to be van drivers, that they are not all actual van drivers, that they are staff that may drive the van one time for a class or a club, but they're not available to drive the van. For activities. One thing in the fall, with the vans is our golf team, the coach uses that, instead of buses. So we also have to have the van available, but we do have more vans now. So that is an option that if there are, and actually in the past, I can't speak if they would be able to or not, but several years ago, when the football coach used to come down here, that was the off season, but he would pick up the van and use our van to get up to Fleetwood and bring them back. Some of that goes on numbers too, of how many. Since 9 will fit on the van, but there, we put all options out there that we can try to.
The easiest way is for our parent to become a van driver for Quigley and then only drive for extracurricular, and then they get paid and the liability and everything is to Quigley. Because our vans are also used for all of our field trips. We use them for sporting events, because we don't have the buses and the extracurricular drivers to drive for all of our events either. We use them to take kids home at the end of it. So we can't guarantee that all of our vans will be driving. That's another one where even if our vans are here, we don't always have them. But that easiest way, because Quigley has the vans on the lot, so, and it doesn't fall to our liability insurance, it falls on Quigley. And then the parent gets paid for driving. They only drive for that. Anything else?
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Anything else, Tim? Anything else from Mr. Rhodes, or can you go home?
Go home, go home. Boy, welcome to stay. Yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
It was air conditioning or new windows? What do you want?
Let us know on the swimming. Okay, let us know on the swimming.
thanks, Deb. Good night.
See you. Have a good one.
Okay, number 2 is the Science Explorers flyer for elementary students for the year. Everything's advertised for there. That's a really great program. Number 3 is the first of your out-of-county field trips. Mr. Deisher and Ms. Endimanson in one additional chaperone, 24 students, National FFA. We did really well with the state convention. In June, from October 25th to the 29th in Indianapolis. All your costs are listed, total 21,806. Number 4 is approve the co-curricular and extracurricular positions for 22-23 as listed.
Are they all full already?
No, we're still missing middle school boys soccer and some odds and ends on the co-curricular side. Athletics is in pretty good shape, except for that middle school soccer. He's got some leads on that.
This
but-
boy soccer, did you say?
Yeah, middle school
Boys.
boys soccer. That's it for student activities.
Good news?
Ag, want me to keep going?
Yeah,
Keep
please.
going.
For Mr. Keller tonight, Ag Advisory is Ag tuition students, their tuition student requirements, basically the same as STEM. Their zip code is different. The Ag student agreements, Brandywine has one full-time, Exeter one part-time, Fleet one full-time, one part-time. Number 3 is the Ag Advisory Board as required by the CCC. All those are listed for you. Their next meeting is in October. Communications, I didn't have anything, but I left it on in case you had any updates. I sent out 2 reminders on the white t-shirt.
Yes, thank you. I have 2 intact and 2 commitments of other people who forgot them. And just in case, if you want to see again, this is what our t-shirts will look like. And those are our pencils that Zach and I will be making out of pool noodles. So.
You can dress Mr. Mark as a pencil.
Exactly.
There will be no sport biting with the.
Oh, come on. On guard.
I like that idea.
That's it.
Yeah, board reps.
These factors in
Yeah, Macy Gundy, we're returning as your senior rep for student reps for the board. And Sean Hoffman, who is the junior class president, will be coming in as your junior board rep. And they will be present on August 18th to start the 22-23 school year.
Anybody got anything else?
I got something. The letters we send out for like compliance with the vaccination schedules, things like that. Is there a way to put on there something in regards to, because some people do follow exemptions.
We're
We
not,
filed for exemptions. What's that?
we're not allowed to. That's a state letter.
You can't put on like to get information about exemptions. Really?
Yep.
It's
That
a legal
letter-
issue?
That letter is, that's the state letter that we send out.
Would that be a,
Okay, modified, we're saying, or?
That's a standard staff letter from we send out.
we have to use it? We have to use it?
Yeah. Yeah. So you just call the nurses and say, where do I get the information?
I mean, I just think it's worth people knowing that there are exemptions. We've used exemptions for years for our children to come into school, and there's a lot of, and I was reached, people reached out to me regarding that. And I said I would bring it up because it was a good point, and I think it would be nice if it said, bring your proof of vaccinations in. Oh, here are the exceptions for exemptions for such vaccinations. So there's.
Yeah, you'd have to go through the health department. It's one of those, we're supposed to stay silent and require it until you tell us otherwise.
Yep.
Otherwise, we are negligent in, I forget how it was put by a lawyer. One time I argued that point, like we weren't providing all the information, and I had a law firm years and years ago tell me that to do that would be negligent because then you're encouraging parents not to have their children vaccinated and putting other children at risk.
That's taking a point of.
Yep, I know.
And That's taking a side.
It's taking us on.
That's right. You're right.
But as a
And I think
commission,
everybody should have full information. That's just my point.
I don't
appreciate that.
disagree, but I was told as a commissioned officer by the state of Pennsylvania, my job is to do what the health department says, which is you require people to have vaccination.
Yeah.
If they don't want it, then, and they call and ask you, you provide the information, but you make them take that extra step.
Okay.
Which we have, as soon as somebody emails and says, how do I get out of it? We say, this is what you do.
Yeah.
It's sort of like PSA, this is what you do.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time educating my patients about it and people that want to know, but there's a lot of people that don't know about it. So just, I have curiosities there. I appreciate it.
We have more people opting out every year.
Yeah.
And we kind of let it grow, but we can't put it in writing or it comes back on us saying, look, my kid got sick because you said, Mr. Pollock, not to vaccinate your kid.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into a debate about it. I have my beliefs about it, but
Yeah, it's the legal people. If it's in writing, then it looks like we endorsed it. That was the law firm that I got involved with a lot over the years. So. But yeah, if people have questions, they're welcome to call me, call the nurses. We'll gladly give them the information. We just can't put it on.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Anybody out there?
Yeah, I have a question in regard to the letter we received. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Which letter?
From Chad Kaufman. I know Zach, I believe, answered the half of it. As far as the question and two recent OVSD purchases. One was in regard to statue, and the other one was high school marching band uniforms that, according to the email, was in excess of 60,000.
I'm not familiar with.
Yeah,
what you're talking
somebody reached out regarding the links, the statue. And it was donated by the class of 2022.
Right.
And I didn't respond back to this other, because I had no idea, something regarding the purchase of band.
High school
uniforms,
marching
if I
band
recall.
uniforms were purchased and already received. And the person heard that it was in excess of 60,000. So they
That's my
apparently
fault
looked
not
through,
forwarding that.
he
They
looked through
purchased
all the
last year.
agendas and did not see that
I'll
we
forward that email to you.
So they purchased last year.
They purchased last year. Their music was on cycle last year. Their uniforms were on cycle. That's why they had all their new curriculum written. They got new materials, they got new instruments, they got new uniforms. It wasn't 60,000. They didn't, uniforms were not, they were up for new uniforms. Sneak peek for what?
Of like their gowns or whatever. So I think maybe the foundation.
They purchased something?
Oh, they took them out of the boxes and they hung them up. They had their Tri-M kids come in and they came in and they unpacked them and packed up the old uniforms, which the Black Pants were trying to sell to, wherever we could sell them, because Black Pants are Black Pants. And then I don't know what they're gonna do with the jackets, and then they're reusing the plumes, because the black plumes, and then they have white plumes depending on where they're performing. And then when the uniforms came in June, they unpacked them in the boxes to make sure they got hung up and put in the garment bags, and they're not in the boxes, and because you can't, so they're hung up and not, so they're ready to be distributed and not fitted for the kids. They're not as heavy as the old wool ones, so they actually will be using them. And then they pushed out, I know it's on Facebook, I think it was, that the uniforms are in and they're looking forward to debuting them at the 75th at the parade. That's what color they're rolling them out, because the uniform design is a tribute to the past and the present and for the future, the way that they are. I think the uniforms are all, because we didn't buy like 200, because we don't have that many marching band people. And the nice thing is that the way that they're lighter, so that kids aren't going to sweat to death in them. The old uniforms, if anybody has band people, are worn out and disgusting. Actually, they're on cycle, just as the choir robes were years ago, and they were due just like athletic uniforms get purchased and replaced every year too. And no, they were not $60,000. Band uniforms, or the band front uniforms, are designed that they work for male or female. So if we wish to go into rifles again, or whatever he decides to do down there, as he's trying to get into more of a, not competition, but into a field band performance and get them into exhibitions and get into that. But the design on them are actually nice, because you don't have to hem the cuffs, you don't have to hem the pants. They're all like snap adjustable, so they'll fit the kids. They're lighter. But they were on cycle, so that was when they were up, because I don't know what year you had bought them, but that was all budgeted expenses in last year's budget.
I'll forward this email. You can take a look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Dr. Shank, so if he wants to look up on the agenda and approval when it was taking place with the amounts, where would he be able to look it up? Do you
Would
have
have
any
been,
idea of roughly what month it was?
would have been in the bills probably back in probably February or March.
Okay,
It was in the budget from way back when.
all right.
Anybody else? Just enjoying the warm night?
Start off by-
All right, folks, I guess we'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks.